You should start with defining what professional means. You should be predictable and reliable.
When you think about being a professional, it's how you treat people, how you show up, whether you're punctual, whether you deliver your work on time.
When we do well, we tend to discount luck and say it was our own effort. When something goes wrong, we say it's luck or kismet.
But now we have a lot of trainers in Pakistan. They may have, watched a few YouTube videos. Next thing, they're marketing themselves as trainers or business coaches. Hello, this is Amir Qureshi. Welcome to the IOP podcast and our series on building your career. Shahriyar, we're going to be talking about lots of things, how to excel, how to achieve success in your career. Where should we start?
I think we should start with defining what professional means, because at the end of the day, whether you're a new entrant in an organization or whatever your profession may be, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be a corporate executive. But I think we need to have a little bit of a discussion around what professional actually means.
Yes, I suppose we know what unprofessional is. We see it all around us and we can recognize it. So these are people who are working for organizations, who look tardy, who don't keep to a schedule, who never deliver projects on time. When they come to the office, they look like they've just woken up. That is unprofessional. So in contrast, how would you define a young person who's professional in his approach?
Well, I think what's happened is that over time, the term itself has broadened. But I think there are some key areas which would be consistent regardless of what you're doing, is that you should be predictable and reliable in terms of, so if you say something, you'll be somewhere on time, you'll be on time. If you say that you're going to deliver something, you're going to deliver. If you can't, then you'll at least sort of inform to say, well, this has been delayed because of X, Y, Z. So that integrity towards whatever you're doing, regardless of what your actual work may be, I think that's very important. You need to be honest, and your integrity about what you're doing needs to be high.
Yes, and I think honest and integrity and honesty towards the organization that you represent, that you work for, you're a member of a team, you have to keep all of those things in mind. When we talk about professionalism, where do values and ethics come into it? I mean, in Pakistan, everyone says that life would be a lot easier if we didn't have to worry about values and ethics. But how do professionals deal with values and ethics, and how important are they?
I don't think I can overstate the importance of ethics, because all of the things that go towards making a good human being, not just a good professional, are the ethics and the values that you embody. Whether that's telling the truth, showing respect to others, regardless of their position in life. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, it's kind of the other way around, where if somebody is above you in their social status or economic status, you tend to revere them, or at least visibly be more respectful to them versus somebody who you perceive to be below your social status. I think that's a big issue in Pakistan, where somebody poor or whatever is treated badly.
Yes, they often say one way of assessing what a person is really like deep down is to see how they behave with those people who are not of the same, let's say, social status, or they don't have the same position in an organization. That's how you can assess the real character of someone. And I think that is probably not a bad way of finding out what the person is really about.
Yeah. I speak at universities with kids, and one of the questions I always ask them is that when you sit in a car with a driver, do you sit next to the driver or do you sit in the back? And invariably, they all say that we sit in the back. And I said, well, if I were taking you somewhere, would you sit in the back or would you sit next to me? They said, well, next to you. I said, why? Why is there this distinction? Just because you think that the driver or the Uber driver or Kareem or whatever it is beneath you. You won't sit next to him. And it gets a lot of them thinking about this. And I say, you got to look around, see how you treat people. Treat the people who theoretically may be below you in their economic status or whatever it is. Why wouldn't, So
I think when you think about being a professional, it's an all-encompassing sort of thing. It's how you treat people, how you show up, whether you're punctual, whether you deliver your work on time, how you show respect to people at all levels, not just the ones above you. And also in terms of values and ethics, it's making sure that you put the interests of your clients or those you're working for ahead of yours. In other words, there's no conflict of interest. You stick to your values that you've been brought up with. I remember many years ago when I was working for a firm here in Pakistan. Don't have a lot of experience working here for organizations, but I'd never been offered a bribe in various jobs, and neither have I ever had to pay anyone as such. But in this particular instance, I was negotiating with a client for a project, and it was quite an interesting situation, actually. We were in the boardroom, the team was there, and, we were being pushed very hard by this client to reduce the fee. And finally, to wrap things up, I said, look, whatever the best fee that you've been offered by any other firm, we will match that. So let's take the fee, the cost off the table. You should focus on what we will deliver in terms of value and everything. So we were wrapping up the meeting. He said, okay, fine, he'll get back to us. I was walking him out the door when he asked me for a few minutes on my own without the staff and everything. So we go into the room. He says, you know how you quoted me $50,000 for this job on behalf of the firm? Could you make it $60,000 instead? And I said, you've just spent the last 45 minutes trying to bring the price down. Why do you want us to increase it now all of a sudden? And he looked left, right to make sure nobody was in the listening distance. And then he said, because $10,000 has to go towards paying certain expenses. And that will be between us. So I said to him, there is the door, get out. And that was the last I heard from that person. So it's just an example, not that I'm, showcasing myself as someone with values or ethics, very high degree, although I like to believe I do, but it's just understanding where your limits are. I was never going to accept the job where we had to pay $10,000 in a bribe, and we had to ask the person to sort of leave. So you have to have that barometer to know when to say no and when to say yes, I suppose. There's another very interesting saying that we're all in sales. And I know you have a sales background. I don't. What does that actually mean? We're all in sales.
Well, you have a sales background too. You just don't know it.
Maybe I've never thought about it.
Yeah. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, so if you need to look at sales not just as, selling a physical object. If I'm selling this mug, so I'm in sales. If I'm not selling a mug, then I'm not in sales. Whatever you're doing in life, you're actually getting somebody else to act in a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? Based on whatever you're telling them to do. So if you're a chartered accountant, for example, you're selling accounting services. If that's what. So you're selling services. Let's take the example of two people working in an organization, let's say in HR and finance, right? So theoretically you would say, well, no, I mean, none of them are in sales. But at the end of the day, the finance person has to sell whatever the concepts or whatever, his point of view is to the HR person, and similarly the HR person. So it's not just about physical sales. The other thing I will say, and I say this to anybody I meet, especially young people and all, definitely at the start of your career, make sure you're able to spend some time actually in sales. Whatever your organization is selling, field sales or, whether it's online sales, whatever, spend time in sales because that prepares you for a lifetime of sales, even when you're outside sales.
Yes, you need to understand what the customers are looking for, the whole experience, I suppose, the customer journey. And without that, you tend to make, I suppose, decisions which may not always help the organization. Yeah, so we're all in sales. And also the example that you gave about HR and finance, I mean, effectively, we may be having conflicting points of view at times, especially HR and finance often used to be disagreeing. But we have to present our case to the CEO and let him or her decide which is the preferred option. And that is effectively like marketing or pitching your point of view. So yes, we're all in sales. We're all in sales. Where do you sit on this saying that luck is more important than we realize? Do you think luck plays a part in our success?
I think it does. I think that we tend to, when we do well, we tend to discount luck and say it was our own effort. When something goes wrong, we say it's luck or kismet or whatever, But we shouldn't avoid the fact that, yes, luck is very important. Being at the right place at the right time, for example, to be presented with an opportunity because you happen to be there or happen to be in a certain position or happen to have a certain skill set that matched with that. So I think it's enormously important. A lot of the fresh hiring that is done when you come out of the university, a lot of that is luck. That you become part of that. I mean, it's no great skill on your part to be accepted by an organization when you're fresh out of university. So I think that we tend to ignore the fact that, yes, luck is very important. It's not just that we are, because luck is everything. It isn't. But part of that is staying open to opportunity.
Yes, that's very important.
Because if you're close to opportunity, I mean, the luck may be, you may be offered something, or some opportunity may present itself. But if you're closed off to it, if you say, no, I don't know, I'm not sure, this, that, and the other, well, the luck worked, but you didn't take advantage of it. So,
And sometimes luck may be what allows you to walk into an opportunity. But then it does come back to how, you take advantage of that opportunity, how much work, effort you put into it, whether you make a success of it or not. So just getting an opportunity could be, yes, luck, but beyond that, there is all of those things we've been talking about, perseverance, commitment, and so on, is very, very important. So luck, yes. When I look back, so many things have happened in my life, which there's no other way of describing other than luck, divine intervention, God's will. And in fact, in my first book, when I talk about what must-haves for success, I said some degree of luck / divine intervention is essential. Without that, you cannot succeed.
right.
So yeah, I agree. What about another famous saying, stop waiting for permission? Or as they say, it's easier to seek forgiveness later. Sorry, it's better to seek forgiveness later than to ask for permission first. Where do you sit on this?
100%. I agree with that. I mean, and that goes back to one of the things we talked about in one of our previous episodes where we talked about taking action. And I think that a lot of times there will be a lot of people holding you back from taking action, scaring you or saying, wait, or this, that, and the other. A lot of times you just have to do it. And then say, if it works, great, everybody's clap you on the back. But if it doesn't, you say, sorry, we'll do something different.
I think in a professional setting that we are talking about, when we say stop waiting for permission, we really are talking about taking the initiative. Don't always wait for someone to, tell you to do certain things. If you see something needs to be done, do it. Occasionally, yes, you may overstep the mark and be told you showed too much enthusiasm and too much commitment and too much dedication. Next time, please ease off. But that's unlikely to happen.
Yeah.
You have to stay within the limits and boundaries of whatever your role is. But if it needs to be done, you should jump in and do it, because that will enhance your career, I suppose, and create more opportunities. So in terms of becoming a good professional, I think, just take the initiative, be proactive. Don't wait for your boss to tell you to do things. Go ahead and do what needs to be done. And if you need their insights or input, you can definitely ask them. But instead of just, and as they often say, actually, the best way to get promoted is to be acting in a position that you don't currently have, one level above.
Right.
So I think that really, really helps. So there's a lot to being a professional, and we've touched on many of those things and the importance of values and ethics making sure that we promote ourselves within the organization, we have good communication skills. What about this constant need to upskill yourself? We've talked about this in earlier episodes as well. How important is it, and when do you stop upskilling yourself? When can you stop?
Well, in today's world, I don't think you can stop. I think whether you're a 22-year-old fresh graduate or you're somebody at the top of your career, you have to continue to upskill. So now the nature of the skill may change, but you can't just rest on your laurels and say, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I can't learn anything new.
Let's talk about these mid-career professionals, and I come across many of them who've been working in an organization for 20, 30 years, and they believe they're beyond learning. And this is one of the things that I struggle with when I'm working with them. There is an attitude that I know everything and I don't really want to know anything more. How do you get these people to change their mindset and realize that unless they adapt with the changing times, they're going to be history very soon?
I think part of it is fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of, if you're 45 or 50 years old, been doing something for 25 years or whatever it is, you're just afraid of learning something new. You don't think you're capable enough. You don't think it's relevant to what you may want to do. Because I think past a certain point, most executives will think there's a certain linearity to their careers, that, it just continues like this rather than, diverging off somewhere else, whether it's lateral or upwards or in a different industry. So I think that it's fear, and it's fear of looking like an idiot, because if you don't know something, so for at least the initial whatever period, you're going to be useless at it.
So we've talked about a lot of things, young people and, mid-career professionals should talk about. One thing that I really like to emphasize is that if you're going to work for 20, 30 years or beyond, one thing that you need to have is look after your health and well-being. So it's mental health as well as your physical fitness. And unless you are fit physically and mentally, you're not going to be effective in your job. And this is something that I've been preaching for at least 30 years because a lot of people, they get to a certain stage, they become too busy and, they put on weight, they don't exercise. And that sort of shortens their careers. They may end up getting sick. They may not be able to be as focused, or they may suffer from stress. But all of these things can be overcome if they are focused on their mental well-being, they exercise, and they stay fit. What do you think?
I think there's a cultural aspect to that as well. In Pakistan and generally in South Asia, we tend not to be a very active population in general. The opportunities to be active because of weather conditions or the environment that we live in are relatively few as well. So we've all kind of grown up in this thing where beyond a certain age, you say, well, now I just need to kind of sit around and not do anything. And a corollary of this is when people retire, they just sit at home because they don't have much to do, whether it's exercise or mental exercise or physical exercise. They're sitting around kind of criticizing the people around them.
Yes, or we're still watching television in Pakistan and watching those news channels, and everyone is criticizing everyone else and fighting with each other. Yeah, that's one way of shortening your lifespan. That's what your intention is. But exercising, physical exercise, as well as giving yourself mental breaks, I think is essential. So one more thing that I think we should focus on is the importance of having a coach or a mentor, because as we've touched on in earlier episodes, even the elite athletes all have a coach. Roger Federer had a coach, and all of these people improve themselves by having a coach. So as a professional, I'm an accountant. If I were to have a coach who could guide me, give me some strategic insights, give me maybe identify some blind spots, that's going to help me in my career. Why do you think not many people see the need and the benefits of having a coach, especially in the Pakistani context?
Well, what's happened, I mean, the sort of corporate coaching, or especially senior level corporate coaching, is relatively new around the world. I mean, only in the last 10 or 15 years has it started to come on. And you're right that all top athletes, for example, regardless of the actual sport they're playing, they tend to have, person coaches or team coaches who may not be as good as them as obviously playing, right? but they can certainly analyze their game and see, well, here's what you're doing wrong and this is what you need to do. The same thing applies in the corporate world, but it's just that the corporate world hasn't caught up to this yet. In Pakistan, particularly, I think there's an overall issue in Pakistan of not valuing services.
Yep.
In general. So if somebody's a consultant or somebody's a trainer or whatever, somehow still the value of services, unless it's some very large global institution, then that's fine. But if it's individuals offering certain services, those tend not to be valued. I mean,
I suppose there are many reasons for that. One is lack of understanding and value of professional services, like you touched on. The other is the capability and the skill set of the consultants themselves, or the trainers or the coaches, because it's very easy to become a coach. Anyone can be a coach. Unlike sports people we're talking about, where you got to have at least played at a certain level before you could. But now we have a lot of trainers in Pakistan. They're all trainers. They've never really worked in an organization. They may have, watched a few YouTube videos. Next thing, they're marketing themselves as trainers or business coaches. And that has sort of affected people's perception. So sometimes they can't tell the difference between a good coach, someone who'd be able to add value, versus someone who's just going to be, following a script which they've got out of YouTube or Google, for example. And I think that isn't helping. But there are a lot of benefits, though, people can have. And, at various stages, I've been working with coaches of different types. Recently, I worked with someone who was an NLP specialist, really helped me with certain aspects. Previously, I worked with a British coach who was very, very good in terms of helping me to figure out how to market my services and so on, gave me a lot of confidence. At various times, I've had marketing people help me in how to pitch my business, pitch my consulting services and training services to organizations, and constantly learning from these people. And hopefully over time, you sort of start living by those approaches that they teach you. So I think we've had a good conversation in this series of becoming a professional. I think hopefully it'll help some young people find the right career path and progress in their careers. Thank you, Sharia.
Thank you. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.